Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend a chunk of the show opening and holding a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a kind of meditative sound bath, a soundscape of gentleness, quietude, reflection, and maybe mourning. There is a very low likelihood that any of these species will survive the 21st century. And so perhaps we might acknowledge their passage with a moment of our attention, recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Mariana Crow. The Mariana Crow is a critically endangered avian in the Corvus family, that's the crow family, native to the western Pacific Ocean, to the island of Rota in the United States Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. The Mariana Crow is considered a small crow, measuring approximately 15 inches in length, weighing roughly half a pound, with a wingspan of up to 40 inches. Its anatomy is typical of the Corvus family, so it's warm-blooded, with a sturdy build, strong legs, and a large brain size in relation to its body mass. The Mariana Crow's plumage is predominantly black, with suggestions of different colored sheens across its body. So in particular light, you may see like a slightly greenish gloss on the head, a deep blue gloss on its back wings and tail, and a dull greenish sheen on its lower belly. The base of the feathers are a light grayish color, sometimes appearing almost white on the neck. Their wings are broad and powerful, allowing for agile flight and maneuverability. The Mariana Crow's black legs are strong and adapted for perching and walking. Each foot has 4 toes, 3 facing forward and 1 backward, all equipped with sharp claws for gripping branches and prey. Their beak, too, is black and proportionally large, with a slightly hooked tip adapted for foraging and manipulating food. Their eyes are large and dark and are set on the sides of the head, providing a wide field of vision for spotting food and potential threats. Their vision is particularly keen, allowing them to detect subtle movements and discern fine details in their environment. This aids in hunting and foraging for food, for spotting predators, and just like navigating their habitat. They possess excellent hearing enabling them to locate prey, such as small insects, hidden beneath leaves or in crevices. While their sense of smell is not as well defined as their sight and hearing, Mariana Crow may use olfactory cues to detect the scent of carrion or rotting fruit, so like for finding potential food sources. They are opportunistic omnivores. They consume a range of foods based on seasonality and availability. Their diet includes a variety of invertebrates like insects, spiders, and larvae, which they extract from crevices and foliage. Reflecting their island home, hermit crabs make up a substantial portion of their diet, and they also hunt small vertebrae like gecko. Mariana Crow also occasionally consume plants, feeding on fruits and seeds, again based on like seasonality and lack of abundance of other foodstuffs. Mariana Crow, like other Corvus species, are highly social, highly intelligent beings. They are very vocal communicators. They employ locational calls, which are like a high-pitched caw used while perching, foraging, or flying to like announce and triangulate location with other crow. Mated crows use a more nasally locational call, only with one another. So for example, like when a mate is arriving at the nest or when the two are collaborating during nest building, the breeding pairs caw in a unique way specific only to their partner. Both adult and young will monologue. This is a series of quiet guttural and squalling sounds, usually made at and near the nest, and often accompanied by like playful behavior, like ripping leaves or hammering branches. Mariana Crow have also been recorded making alarm calls. This is a series of sharp, rapid caws used to signal danger. Mariana Crow form small family groups, generally consisting of a breeding pair and their most recent offspring, who all stay together until the young mature and disperse, until these juveniles leave to seek their own mate and then begin their own new family group. The breeding season usually begins in August, but can occur throughout the year. Both parents play an active role in building the nest, which is a sturdy structure made of various natural materials like twigs and roots and vines and fibers. Mariana Crow are territorial and will defend their nesting area vocally, physically, and with trickery. In her field notes, Dr. Sarah Faegre, who has studied the Mariana Crow for over 10 years, describes being cawed at, dive-bombed, and pecked by parents protecting their nest. She also recounts observing a fledgling fall nearly right at her feet and hop awkwardly off into the forest. Worried for the fledgling's safety, she quickly followed and is led on a winding path deeper into the woods as the bird scrambled along the forest floor. As she got close, the crow suddenly spread to full wingspan and took flight. It was, in fact, an adult male crow that had convincingly mimicked the physical behavior of a fledgling to lead Dr. Faegre away from the actual nest. So though the Mariana Crow have a range of strategies to protect their young, on average, one clutch per year fails. This is usually due to weather damaging the nest and eggs, or a successful predator, like the monitor lizard, eating the eggs or small chicks. When nesting attempts fail, the breeding pair will quickly rebuild and mate again, and so pairs may nest multiple times each year based on initial nest failures. The female typically incubates the eggs, usually 1 to 4 eggs per clutch, while the male provides protection and forages for food. Mariana Crow chicks are altricial, meaning they hatch helpless. They're born with closed eyes, very few feathers, and are unable to feed themselves. Both parents then share the responsibility of feeding and protecting and nurturing the young chicks. And this biparental care is exhibited by the Mariana Crow throughout all stages of offspring rearing. So the young chicks start to develop feathers within a few days of hatching, but it takes several weeks for their full plumage to come in, and a bit more than a month before they leave the nest at all. And even then, they're still not strong flyers and will continue to rely on their parents for food. They gradually learn social behaviors, speech, and how to forage for themselves under the guidance of their parents. This rearing period, during which the initial pair does not breed and the family flocks together while the young mature and learn, can last multiple years. Young crow have been observed interacting with objects in a playful and exploratory manner, like manipulating twigs and seeds, tearing leaves, hammering on branches, and repeatedly placing and removing objects from hollows. And these behaviors are not related to feeding, but rather seem to be a form of exploration and play. Relatedly, Mariana Crow demonstrate cultural transmission of generational knowledge. So, adult crow have been observed teaching their young how to extract hermit crab from their shells. The adult crow do this in a consistent sequence. They place the shell in a specific way, they peck at specific structural weaknesses in the shell, and then there's this skillful crab extraction where they snip a weak bit of the crab abdomen and then shake it from its shell. Young crow learn this by observing and then mimicking their parents, initially displaying errors like in the sequence and in targeting. And so adults will repeat their demonstration over many months until the young have mastered the process. Observation of captive crow have shown that this is not innate behavior. It is learned and transmitted from parent to young over generations. Mariana Crow also have an unusually altruistic relationship with young who have disabilities. For example, breeding pairs have been observed extending their care for fledglings with birth abnormalities, like crossed bills or missing toes, who otherwise would struggle to feed or walk. The breeding pair were observed foregoing mating cycles for multiple years in order to nurture these young to independence. Mariana Crow can live up to 25 years old in the wild. The earliest fossils we've found for the corvid family date to the Middle Miocene period, so this is roughly 17 million years ago. In the dream, I walk the streets at night. In the dream, I am unworried by the late hour, by the darkness. I am, as ever, thinking about doors closing, things I wish I'd said. Street lamp flickers like the end of a film strip, and then, in the dream, a caw from the charcoal shadows. I do not look. I know not to catch the crow gaze with my own. I slow my steps and deliver my whisper. I say, "Please tell your mistress I seek her." Then there's a low rustle, and then the game. Follow the crow caw in the blackness. 20 feet ahead to the right, I hear it, I follow. It's voicing then around the next corner, I follow. And the city's getting less concrete now, and I feel the brush of leaves in a deepening dark. And perhaps I'm learning the crow song, or at least getting better at guessing crow intention. I draw closer through full woods now, and then into a place with little light, warm and black and undefined, but for a bridge marked by dim constellations. I have imagined this path, this journey, my whole life. I hear a far-off fluttering of wing and offer my own foolish caw, a kind of thanks. And then I step onto the starlit bridge to finally plead my case in the dream. The Mariana Crow is native to the island of Rota in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, located in the western Pacific Ocean, roughly 1,500 miles east of the Philippines. The island's bioregion is classified as tropical rainforest, characterized by lush vegetation, high biodiversity, and a warm and humid climate. The landscape is diverse, featuring rugged limestone cliffs along the coast, rolling hills in the interior, and dense forests covering much of the island. These forests are the nesting site and provide foraging opportunities for the Mariana Crow. Rota's climate is tropical, with high temperatures reaching into the 90s in the summer and winter lows rarely dipping below 75 degrees. It's wet. The island receives an average annual rainfall of roughly 90 inches, mainly during the wet season from July to November. The Mariana Crow shares its island with rufous fantail, beach morning glory, island blind snake, swordgrass, white-throated ground dove, sword fern, yoga tree, monarch fern, pai, Micronesian starling, perfume tree, monitor lizard, false elder, Micronesian gecko, fruit bat, fig tree, and many, many others. Historically, the Mariana Crow population on the nearby island of Guam was decimated by the human introduction of the brown tree snake, which is an invasive predator. Fortunately, these snakes are not currently present on Rota, and rigorous efforts are in place to ensure the snake does not migrate to the island. They have been known to hide in airplane wheel well, accidentally hitching a ride throughout the Micronesian Islands. In the early 2000s, predation by feral cats introduced to the island by humans posed a threat, but recent cat control programs and human educational outreach has successfully reduced that risk. In the mid-2010s, scientists observed the emergence of a possibly infectious syndrome known as AEX, which caused inflammation, anemia, and pneumonia in the Mariana Crow, leading to long illnesses and sometimes death. Research into the disease is ongoing. Local human activities continue to negatively impact the Mariana Crow population. Agriculture and urban development contribute to habitat loss and degradation, and there is past evidence of crow persecution. Biologists use this term persecution to describe deliberate and targeted acts by humans to harm native species. So with the Mariana Crow, for example, scientists found a breeding pair dead beneath their nest, killed by gunshot. And lastly, typhoons, with destructive winds and torrential rain, can cause nest failures, increase adult bird mortality, and can shorten breeding seasons. Human-induced climate change is expected to further exacerbate the frequency and impact of these extreme weather events. So, I love when I can close these episodes with a bit of good news. Conservation of the Mariana Crow has been ongoing since the 1990s to, frankly, middling success until in the early 2010s, researcher Dr. Sarah Faegre made a breakthrough observation. She and her team recorded unusually high fledgling mortality rates. And so the crow were breeding successfully, young were hatching successfully, and juveniles were successfully growing into adults and forming new breeding pairs. But there was a significant drop-off with 1 to 2-year-olds. So the very young fledglings were not surviving into their early adulthood. And so based on this information, Bagri and her team devised a totally extraordinary conservation plan. They started stealing eggs. So you recall that when a breeding pair of Mariana Crow loses a nest, like to predation or weather damage, they quickly breed again, renest, lay another clutch of eggs, and try for a second brood. That behavior proved true in the case of egg removal as well. So the biologists carefully monitor wild nests and early in the breeding season collect a limited number of eggs. I believe it's like up to 15 per year. And then those collected eggs are incubated and hatched, and the chicks are hand-reared in captivity. And then once past that critical 1 to 2 year mark, they're released back into their natural habitat. Meanwhile, our original breeding pair will have hatched another clutch of eggs, some of which will likely survive into adulthood too. And so the biologists are essentially like doubling the reproductive possibilities, the annual reproductive possibilities for the Mariana Crow. To date, 85 Mariana Crow from this captive rear and release program have been reintroduced to the wild, with 65 individuals surviving and thriving. The released crow have begun breeding, producing 4 wild fledglings thus far. Nevertheless, the Mariana Crow was added to the IUCN Red List of critically endangered species in 1994, and their population is in decline. Our most recent counts estimate that less than 250 Mariana Crow remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Mariana Crow was compiled from the doctoral dissertation of University of Washington's Dr. Sarah Faegre, entitled Behavioral Ecology of the Mariana Crow, from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, from Birds of the World, from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, from Dr. John Morton's Ode to Crows, Ravens, Jays, and Magpies, from the Journal of Fish and Wildlife Management, Volume 6, Issue 2. From the Condor, the Journal of the Cooper Ornithological Society, Issue 88. From Bird Conservation International, Volume 25, Issue 2. And from an article in the Saipan Tribune, July 15, 2024. And from the IUCN and Wikipedia. So in a moment, I would like to perform some music in hopes of opening a space to be in contemplation of the other lives with whom we share this earth. But first, I want to try to clarify this idea that music is not like for the Mariana Crow. I don't want to think of the Mariana Crow as a vessel from which I extract meaning or put meaning upon. Instead, I want to use this music to express my very human awe and to be a space to consider my own relationship to other life, in particular as that life may near extinction. And so I will sit in the space of sound, awe, contemplation, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Mariana Crow. I will endeavor to learn its name in its language, but until then, I will carry its human name in my record. I am so grateful to have shared time on our planet with this being, and I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. And so, in the name of the Mariana Crow, I pledge to reduce my consumption and my carbon footprint and to curb my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions and inactions. And I pledge to resist the harm of plant or animal kin or their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I forever pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bad at Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin. Bye.